you as you plan to reopen your operation. Before you begin, this course is not ServSafe Manager or ServSafe Food Handler training or certification. You will not receive CEUs. A record of training is available after you watch the complete video. You can download the record of training immediately after completing the video by clicking this icon. A transcript is available through the Resources button on your screen. Other important COVID-19 resources are also available through the Resources button. You can use the media player to pause or rewind the video at any time. If you have any questions, please visit www.servsafe.com/contact-us. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way we live and the way we work. And there's no place where that's more true than in the restaurant and food service industry. But now, finally, it's time to talk about reopening. Not every operation will do this in exactly the same way, but there are some basics that we all need to know. To work safely in a restaurant these days, it's essential to know how the SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus that causes COVID-19 works and how to avoid it. COVID-19 is spread from person to person. Anytime an infected person sneezes or coughs or talks or laughs, they create respiratory droplets that can land in the noses and mouths of anyone nearby, or even be inhaled directly into the lungs. That means that if you're in close contact with that person within 6 feet of them, there's a risk that you could become infected. Those droplets can also land on surfaces such as tables, menus, phones, or just about anything, really. If a person touches a contaminated surface and then rubs their mouth, eyes, or nose, it can have the same outcome. It can lead to infection. If a person does become infected, they may show a variety of different symptoms. The most common symptoms include a cough and shortness of breath or difficulty breathing. And people with COVID-19 may exhibit 2 or more of these symptoms: fever, chills, repeated shaking with chills, muscle pain, headache, sore throat, and a new loss of taste or smell. These symptoms can appear anywhere from 2 to 14 days after exposure to the virus, but some infected people may not show symptoms at all. More information is available from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention at cdc.gov. Keeping yourself healthy is the best way to keep your guests safe. The virus spreads between people in close contact, so social distancing is the best way to avoid it. As not all infected people show symptoms, it is best to keep your distance at all times. Also avoid touching your face with unwashed hands, especially your eyes, nose, and mouth. You don't want to give the virus a free ride into your body. And of course, wash your hands. That's more important now than ever. What else can you do to keep your guests safe? The most important thing is to stay home if you're feeling sick. So tell your manager when you feel ill. They'll let you know what you need to do. Some operations may look for signs of illness during a pre-work screening, and some may check to see if employees have a high temperature, or they may ask you to check yourself. It depends on the operation and local legal requirements. Another important precaution you can take is to make sure that coughs and sneezes are covered. And this is where face coverings come in. The main purpose of a face covering is to keep the people around you safe by controlling the spread of droplets, whether you're coughing, sneezing, or even just talking, laughing, or breathing. You want face coverings to fit snugly and comfortably against the side of your face. It doesn't matter whether they tie around the back of your head or use ear loops. Either is fine. Just make sure that the face covering covers both your mouth and nose, fits snugly, and that you can breathe without restriction. Washable cloth face coverings should be made of multiple layers of fabric and should be suitable to being laundered and machine dried. When you're putting the face covering on, be careful not to touch your eyes, nose, or mouth with unwashed hands. If you're wearing a face covering in an environment such as a hot kitchen, you may be tempted to touch or adjust it. Avoid this as much as possible. If you do touch the face covering, always treat it as if it's contaminated. Wash your hands and change your gloves if you're wearing them. And if you remove your face covering, remember not to set it on a food contact surface. Either dispose of the mask or place it in a container or bag. Then launder it as directed by your manager. If you don't have a face covering on, you still need to control those droplets, so cough or sneeze into your elbow. Or you can cover your nose and mouth with a tissue, then throw that tissue in the garbage and wash your hands immediately. You work in food service, so you already know how to wash your hands properly. If you have any questions, ask your manager. For control of coronavirus, the CDC recommends 20 seconds of scrubbing, which is longer than the standard food safety practice. After washing, you don't want to recontaminate your hands and arms, so you may want to use a paper towel to turn off the faucet and to open the door when leaving the restroom. But what should you do if you believe your hands may have become contaminated and you're not near a sink, such as when you're on delivery? In that case, the FDA recommends using a hand sanitizer that contains at least 60% alcohol. Then wash your hands properly as soon as possible. All right, your hands are sparkling clean. Can you touch ready-to-eat food with bare hands? Nope. Wear single-use gloves whenever handling ready-to-eat food. If the gloves become contaminated, throw them away and get a fresh pair. Follow your operations policy on glove use. As an alternative to gloves, food can be handled with spatulas, deli sheets, tongs, or other utensils. When reopening the operation, you should discard any food items that are out of date. Then the whole place is going to need to be cleaned and disinfected. While dealing with coronavirus, you'll probably hear a lot more about disinfecting. Yep, sanitizing and disinfecting are not exactly the same, and they may use different chemicals. Here's what you need to know. Disinfectant should not be left on food contact surfaces, so you need to rinse it off, then clean and sanitize that food contact surface according to standards. Your manager can tell you how and where to use sanitizers and disinfectants. And what do you need to clean and sanitize when you reopen? Everything. Food contact surfaces, of course, but pretty much everything else too. Basically, if an employee or guest can touch it, then it needs to be cleaned and disinfected. And this isn't just for reopening, but on an ongoing basis as well. Pay special attention to items that are touched frequently, such as light switches, handles and doorknobs, phones, and touch screens. Your manager can tell you more about your operations requirements for cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting. After reopening, cleaning and sanitizing procedures are going to be different than they were before COVID-19. In the back of the house, services will need to be cleaned and sanitized more frequently. Same thing for restrooms. They should be checked regularly and cleaned and disinfected based on how frequently they are used. Everybody appreciates this. In the front of the house, you'll find that things are a bit different as well. Between seatings, it's important to clean and disinfect pretty much anything that can be touched. That includes items such as salt shakers, check presenters, digital ordering devices, and touch screens, and tabletops and seats. Oh, and don't forget menus. Clean and disinfect menus between guests, or throw them away if they're paper. If your operation has self-service areas, your manager can tell you what needs to be done there. We've all heard plenty about social distancing, and we all know that maintaining a 6-foot distance can help to keep us, our coworkers, and our guests safe. And that's important because we will be sharing space with our coworkers in the back of the house and with our guests in the front of the house. Even so, there are steps we can take. After reopening, restaurant and food service operations are going to look a little different. For starters, you'll probably be seeing new signage. That includes signs at the entrance stating that no one with a fever or symptoms of COVID-19 will be permitted inside the operation, and signs that direct guests to hand sanitizer stations and that offer instructions on how to maintain distance. The layout of the facility may change as well. Each operation is different, but you can expect to see efforts made to keep guests and employees at safe distances. That might include things like 6-foot spacing between guests, barriers between booths, smaller tables, changes to the way self-service areas function, and increased spacing in kitchens. The way that we work is also being adapted to allow social distancing. Technology can help here. Contactless payment systems and mobile ordering apps are a good way to reduce close contact. Reservation systems and encouraging guests to call or text ahead can also help to reduce guests crowding in waiting areas and bar areas. In fact, Some operations may encourage guests to wait outside or in their cars until a table opens up or while a carryout order is prepared. And don't forget third-party delivery drivers, suppliers, and anyone else who may enter your operation. Social distancing applies to everyone. Of course, our job is to provide great food and service. We will deal with people during the course of our work, so when working with guests, you may want to use a face covering, or you may be required to. And if your operation has hand sanitizer for guests, be sure to let them know where it is and thank them for their patience. All of this applies to us too. Keep that distance between coworkers, not only while working, but also when taking breaks. If you need to work in smaller kitchens or other confined areas, it may be tricky to stay 6 feet apart. So if that's your situation, consider wearing a face covering to keep your coworkers safe, and clean and sanitize frequently. Your operation may have other strategies as well. We can't talk about reopening without looking at pickup and delivery. Both of these have gotten a lot more popular. The same tools used in the rest of the operation apply here. Using face coverings, maintaining social distancing and preventing crowding, and maintaining good hygiene. A great way to reduce contact during pickup and delivery is to use touchless payment systems if offered by your operation. And offering to place pickup orders directly in the trunk of the guest vehicle is another. Now, whether the customer is picking up or receiving a delivery, the food packaging is critical. It's the barrier between the food and potential contamination. That's why it's so important that the packaging stays closed and intact. It should never be opened by anyone except the customer. Cleaning and disinfecting matters for off-site delivery too. Coolers, insulated bags, even the delivery vehicle that all of this is carried in should be cleaned frequently. Your manager can tell you your operations policies. When delivering food off-site, you want to reduce close contact just like anywhere else. You might encourage your customers to consider no-touch deliveries if offered by your operation. Combining touchless payments, texting, or phoning the customer on arrival, and a no-touch handoff can keep contact to a minimum while still providing great service. And that's basically it. We're ready to get back to work. Operations are reopening, and now you know what you need to do. Keep everything clean and disinfected, pay attention to hygiene, especially hands, and maintain social distancing. Of course, the situation continues to change, and we learn more every day. If we do our part, we can help keep everyone safer, employees and guests.